I only began to understand my Dalit identity very late. So gender, caste, class, religion, in all these areas, in 4 times you can say that I am having multiple identities. The mainstream feminist movement leaders, they are not willing to accept that Dalit women's issues are different or deeper or there is more injustice. They subsumed the issues of Dalit women under their issues, and mainly they identified violence as the issue of women. I was made aware of my Dalit identity through some work-related experiences. My parents were professionally qualified. My mother was a teacher, very well-known teacher in all best schools. She studied in the best schools. My father was an engineer. We lived a privileged life. My father, because he was in a good post, we had bangla and gadi and servants in the house. We were very polished in the way we spoke English. So we never felt that we were disadvantaged. I felt I was a privileged person. But to be counted as this, then I understood, okay, I thought, okay, maybe because I am dark skinned, maybe it's color discrimination. Then I used to think, maybe because I am a South Indian, because many NGOs are North Indian led, so that's why, because they like North Indian. It's not that, it's not this either. Then they thought maybe because I am Christian, many times Christian, they don't like to hire. But I know fair skinned Christian girls who are in very high position. Then what is it? So if you are dark, if you are South Indian, it's most likely that you are from a Dalit background. This is the connection people are making. I did not know. Dalitness was a label stuck upon me. I accepted it and I acknowledge and own it. I don't hide it. Many people hide it. I did not grow up with a Dalit Christian identity. I accepted it. My name is Cynthia Stephen. I've been working in Bangalore now for 20 or 30 years. By training, I'm a journalist, and I've also subsequently got very active in the women's movement as well as in the NGOs, working with NGOs. When I was very active in the NGO movement, I worked on micro enterprise issues, and after that I joined the group which was working called Search, which was working on people's movements and building people's capacities and developing them. After that I joined the Beijing World Conference Coordination Unit. So in 1995 there was a 4th UN World Conference on Women. So I was a media coordinator of that, because as I told you, I had already been trained in media. Subsequently I got very actively involved in the gender issue, because women and gender was a very crucial issue during the 90s. And governments and NGOs were just beginning to understand the inequality created by gender. And it is in this context that I became very active in the women's movement. At the same time, because I was in the coordination unit, which had Dr. Ruth Manorama as one of the task force members who was coordinating. And she was also very, as you all know, she is a very eminent Dalit woman leader, apart from being a mainstream women's activist as well. So she has organized on issues of urban poor and women's issues and all that. So she had started the National Federation of Dalit Women just before the team left for Beijing. So like that I got aware of the Dalit women's issues, and subsequently my work in gender and consciousness of my understanding of inequality in the society made me focus more and more, though I have not left I have not shifted my focus from women. The issues of women and gender, social inequality continue to operate, but I feel that the women from the marginalized section need much more inputs and have to progress much more. They have fallen behind the rest of the women as well as the rest of the general population. And so I feel the need for, there is more inequality there. That is why I should focus more on their issues. That is how I started working more and more on Dalit women's issues. I have worked in women's studies. I also took a master's in women's studies much after my work with women as a gender expert. And it was during those times when I was studying in my master's degree, I came across this term Dalit feminism. And somehow my entire being rejected this phrase. I could not understand why. After a lot of thinking, maybe 2-3 weeks, I thought, what was disturbing me? Why did Dalit feminism, that word, disturb me? Then I understood. What I understood was, all that I knew about Dalit women's work and life, all that I knew about feminism, they were in like two different compartments. It is very difficult to overlap the two. Either you work with Dalit women's issues or you are working on feminist issues. I have worked with both. But I saw that the mainstream feminist movement leaders, they are not willing to accept that Dalit women's issues are different or deeper, or there is more injustice. Then they subsumed the issues of Dalit women under their issues, and mainly they identified violence as the issue of women. Whereas if you ask Dalit women, they will say we don't have food, we have less access to water. They will say that we are differentially subject to sexual violence. They will say that our children are not able to study with peace, they are dropping out of school. So, their problems are very much different from the issues that feminist movements used to talk about and write about and take up. So, the agenda setting, the agenda that the feminist movement set for itself were issues like definitely violence, that to domestic violence, then property rights, and then issues of sexual harassment at the workplace. Our Dalit women have no place to work. They are either landless workers or they are working from the house. Those were not issues for them. For them, low wages was an issue. That was not an issue of the mainstream Dalit feminist movements. So, there is a huge gap, and the agenda setting of the feminist movement was far from the day-to-day life experiences of Dalit women. And if you talked about violence against Dalit women in terms of rape and everything, it was always in the context of land struggles or struggle for rights or water. Whereas the violence faced by the feminist women are feminist or the mainstream women's movements, those violence are either from the domestic or public, they are going in the bus and somebody harass them sexually. It is not an intrinsic part of their lived experience the way it is for Dalit women, because if a girl carries a pot of water to the well, someone is attacking her. If they are working in the field, someone is attacking her. If she is doing work in the garment factory, there she is being targeted. So, it is in the context of work. But was a justice given to them, or was a legal system able to catch this and give them justice? No. So, this is the way in which there is a divergence in the agenda setting and the work and energy used by the feminist movement for struggling, whereas Dalit women's issues, Adivasi women's issues are for land, life, subsistence, wages, very different. I would say that usually in general people talk about gender, caste and class as the three ways in which women are differentiated. So, in my case I would say a fourth, that is Christian. So, gender, caste, class, religion, in all these areas, in 4 times you can say that I am having multiple identities. To tell you the truth, I only began to understand my Dalit identity very late. Even at the time of when I was with the Beijing women's movement, I told you about when I was working there in the 1995. Then again in the year 2000, there was a Durban conference in which very importantly the Dalit issue was brought to to international attention by a number of activists. who there in public, they were the first time, for the first time people began to understand that it is not just a pattern of social organizing, but it is a way in which the society is structured in an unjust manner. That understanding only started because activists from India organized themselves to go and present in that manner. Even at that time, to tell you the truth, I was not aware about my Dalit identity. I was made aware of my Dalit identity through some work related experiences. For the first time, the label was stuck on me that I am Dalit. I could not understand why people were calling me Dalit, because, or I mean, I did not understand that they were seeing me as a Dalit or that they were calling me as a Dalit. Why? So I had after I left the Beijing, after I finished my work contract with Beijing conference in 1995, I had got married in 94. 95 was completely busy with Beijing work, so I was traveling and all that. In 1996, my first baby girl was born, and then in 97 my son was born. So till they became 2-3 years, I was a little quiet. I was working, but not very active for obvious reasons. Then after that, I wanted to re-enter the formal job market. I was working, but I was working in a field other than my field. That is, I was working in disability. I was running a disability center, and that had quarters, so I was staying there, and my family was, I was living on the quarters and running the thing. I wanted to go back to my gender work, and that is when I started interviewing. And I had by that time I had got a very good reputation. I had been writing articles. As I had said that I am also a media person, so development journalism was my forte, so I have written in many development journals and all. So I used to write, I used to be invited to lecture, I began to do gender training, so I was known as a gender trainer. So I was definitely hoping for, and I had international experience because of Beijing. I had definitely had expectation that I will get a very good job in a very good like NGO related organization. I took 3 or 4 interviews, like middle and top management jobs. I was also in my 30s. I could have easily aspired, and rightfully so, but in every case I was not given the job. Finally, around the same time, I interviewed for a post of state program director in a large government project. They were very keen that I should join, and they were encouraging me, they were helping me with they said, but you have to perform well in the interview, we would like you to join and all. So it was IAS officer were coming from Delhi to do the interview, and and 5 or 6 ladies were there. I interviewed, and I knew that I had done very well in the interview. Written test was there, then Viva was there. I performed very well. I was the best qualified, I know, because I was also by then quite senior. So, but I fully expected to be hired. But I found that 2 months and 3 months are passing and no news. Then finally I called up that organization and asked whether the director has been hired. They said, yes ma'am. Then I asked, who is that? Then they gave me a name of a girl who had come for that interview. I knew her because she was from my same school. But I knew also that she was a Brahmin, and she is also the daughter of some central services officer, and also married to a central services officer. Then I said, oh, it must be because of nepotism. They try to look after their own, that's why they didn't choose me. This is what I thought. But then I remembered one thought, when I told you they were encouraging me to join, no? So during that time, when I gave my biodata, I had put the name of 2 activists. One was a doctor, somebody who is heading an NGO, a big funding agency. The other was Dr. Ruth Manorama. The lady who took my biodata looked at my CV and said, very good, I have given Dr. So-and-so's name, that's fine. But this Dr. Ruth Manorama, we don't talk about Dalit in our organization, you know, they said. I was wondering why they mentioned it. Like as I told you, I was not conscious of being Dalit. Plus, why they should say that we don't talk about in that organization like that, I could not understand. But then I recalled that conversation. Oh, is it that they are seeing me as a Dalit, that is why they don't want to hire me for that post? Already I have 3 or 4 places where I have come right up to like shortlisted, come right up to the final 1 or 2 interview, then you are losing the post. Why the series of, earlier I thought maybe the other person was better, this and that, but then I began to conclude that this is the reason. But I could not definitively say, because I did not have information from my family whether we are Dalit, because my parents were professionally qualified. My mother was a teacher, very well known teacher in all best schools. She studied in the best schools. My father was an engineer. We lived a privileged life. My father, because he was in a good post, we had bangla and gadi and servants in the house. We were very polished in the way we spoke English. So we never felt that we were disadvantaged. I felt I was a privileged person. But to be counted as this, then I understood. Okay, I thought, okay, maybe because I am dark skinned, maybe it's color discrimination. Then I used to think, maybe because I am a South Indian, because many NGOs are North Indian led, so that's why, because they like North Indian. It's not that, it's not this either. Then they thought maybe because I am a Christian, many times Christian they don't like to hire. But I know fair skinned Christian girls who are in very high position. Then what is it? So if you are dark, if you are South Indian, it's most likely that you are from a Dalit background. This is the connection people are making. I did not know, but they are accurately, I did not know about it, nobody told me you are Dalit, but they are able to understand that this is a Dalit, even though we don't. So they have some cultural markers, and so maybe they have some caste arrogance which we don't have. Maybe and then I have seen in meetings, I will be saying something, suddenly everybody will become very quiet, because I have said something that they are uncomfortable with. I don't understand what that is, but because they are from the same caste background, they become very uncomfortable with what I have said. Maybe I have said something critical about Brahmins without thinking. But I never see them as Brahmins, no. I see the issue. I don't see an individual there as a Brahmin. We are talking about Brahminism. So this is the way in which I understood. So I can say that Dalitness was a label stuck upon me. I accepted it and I acknowledge and own it. I don't hide it. Many people hide it. That is what happened in my family. My elders hid the fact that they were Dalit, because it is a stigmatized identity. I did not have that problem. But in fact, I can say that I am proud to accept my Dalit identity. Why? Because we are very hardworking, we are very resourceful, we are very talented. Because some of the most intelligent people, the best musical talents, they are Dalits. So, and very good thinkers, very good critical social analysts, they are Dalits. So, and for instance, the best constitutional lawyer in the world almost is our Dr. Ambedkar. So, like that we have very excellent role models. The society might try to trample the Dalits, but we don't accept it. We are always shining. Even if they do that, we have never, for generations we have been trampled, but we still, so I did not grow up with the Dalit Christian identity. I accepted it. Later on I came to know that all my grandparents were not Dalits. It took me some time, long time to unravel the fact that on my father's side, my father's father, and my mother's side, my mother's mother was Dalit. My mother's father was not a Dalit, and my father's mother was not a Dalit. They had intermarried, intercaste marriage had taken place because they had converted to Christianity. The question of Dalit Christians is not so important as the question of Dalits itself. Why? Because people are born into a caste. They are not born into a religion. This is what our constitution says. Everybody is equal before the constitution. So, your religious identity should not mediate your caste identity. Whereas, in the Presidential Ordinance of August 1950, this has been introduced without a debate in the Parliament into the into the practice, parliamentary practice. So first of all, it's a presidential ordinance which was not debated. It has been under challenge for many years, decades, and has not been resolved. So in my opinion, this thing of Dalit Christian should not, a person is either a Dalit or is not a Dalit. The fact that they change their religion to try and escape the stigma that the Dalit life that is forced upon them, that is an exercise of their constitutional right. Why should my religious, because the same privilege is extended to the Adivasis. Why? Because they are born as Adivasis. Similarly, Dalits are born as Dalits. So why is it that Adivasi and religion is not, you can convert, if you are an Adivasi, you can convert and retain your Adivasi identity. What makes it different for Dalits is my question. Why? Why should, if you convert, why it's not to be linked to religion? Because it's something that is come by birth. That is my point. No, as a matter of fact, it's not the BJP's agenda to bring internal reservation as such. This has been a long-standing demand from a beginning. It is not nothing. This time they are planning, may be planning, but that is classic BJP strategy of divide and rule. Because if the Dalits are all facing a common kind of, but then the Karnataka, the situation of Karnataka's reservations for Dalits is very different from other states. Because if you think that Dalits means untouchables, in Karnataka many touchable groups are also included in the SC list. That is the point. In Karnataka, Lambanis are actually not SCs, but they are listed in the SC list. Then similarly, Bovi, that is one particular community which are stone masons, they work in stone. They are classically, they are not untouchables. They are also included in the SC list. So if you look at untouchables alone, they are not 100% of Dalits in Karnataka. In the SC list, there are these large, Lambanis constitute a large number. Similarly, Bovis constitute a reasonably large number. So like that, there are some other groups which are also included in the SC list in Karnataka. So there is lot of other story also to be taken up. But if you look at only the Dalit untouchable issues, the former untouchables, yes, there is disparity between the Madiga and the what we call in Karnataka Holeya. That is, in Andhra they are called Mala and Madiga. I don't know how they are called here. Puleya and what is there in here also Parayar. Even in Tamil Nadu, Parayar. So these Parayar are their livelihood is linked to land in some way. So there's and also they may be living in, may not be living in, they are part of land related activities. So somehow they are not as isolated, though they also undergo some amount of untouchability and discrimination compared to the Madigas who are working with leather or who are engaged in unclean occupations. So there is a huge disparity in all overall between Malas and Madigas or Holeyas and Madigas. So this is not a new demand, it has been going on for a very long time. And so now these people are trying to play these games for the sake of numbers. The Dalit Christians in Karnataka are not counted as Dalit Christians. They are counted as SC converted to Christianity. So they come under a different category called backward class, and they have their own schedule 3 or something. They have a separate number 3, category 3 they call that. So that along with that category, in that category there are a large number of backward classes, including Lingayats who are very powerful, Vokkaligas who are powerful. So you are competing with all the politically powerful groups if you claim that SC converted Christian identity. So in Karnataka it is not legally feasible. You can't, they will say if you are the Christian you cannot be Dalit. You cannot claim Dalit. We don't. I am not claiming. My children or I, we are going as Christian. But we have not never ever gone and taken certificate and applied for any government benefits. We are managing without that. And that is a fact with many others also. Most of the people don't go for that certificate. Yeah, of course women have every right to choose what they want to wear, and it's not right to deny girls an opportunity to write their exam or study in the class or whatever on that basis. I was part of the struggle and appeared in the press conference with other women from Karnataka, because women's bodies should not be the site for such struggles. They are all studying and they must come up in life. That is more important. Whether they are wearing a hijab or not, they are not wearing hijab on their brains, no. They are only covering their head. That is okay. What is there? In North India, everybody covers their head and puts gungat and all. So, should you ban girls for wearing gungat? That's not the case. I don't see why that should become an issue.